Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Book Beat and the Jess Williams series. Um, and today we're going to look at book number 2 called Brother's Keeper. In book number 1, The Reckoning, you might remember that Jess's family was killed by three bad guys. Jess comes back to his farm and finds them all dead, and he's only 13 or 14 at the time, and then spends the next 3 years basically training himself with his gun so that he reaches a point where he's really, really good. And even though he's only 16 years old, he goes out and hunts down the 3 men that killed his family. In the process, he finds out that actually this wasn't his real family, and that he's got another family that apparently maybe a brother and his real father who apparently maybe are not good people. So that's kind of the thrust of book number 2 called Brother's Keeper. And Jess will be going out of his way in this book to hunt down his brother who goes by the name of Tim Sloan. So let me tell you a little bit about book number 2, Brother's Keeper. Okay, so basically this story has 3 or 4 key people, important people in it. The first one that we kind of meet who comes into play here is Dick Carter. You might remember from book 1 that Dick's son, Red Carter, was kind of a hothead bully in town in Black Creek, Kansas, where Jess grew up. And actually, he is the first person in the entire series that Jess kills. Well, Dick Carter, who is a rancher, an immensely rich rancher, doesn't like the fact at all that Jess Williams, this young snot-nosed kid, has gunned down his own son. And so, because he has so much money and because he has so much hate in his heart, he decides to put a bounty out on Jess's head. Jess, meanwhile, is out looking for his own real brother, Tim Sloan, who is the second very important person in this story. So those two, Dick Carter and then Tim Sloan. And besides that, we meet 2 guys out on the trail that Jess runs into and helps, called Carl and Murray. And they provide kind of comic relief in this book too. And they figure into some of the future Jess Williams stories. So I'll tell you a little bit more about Carl and Murray a little later in this video. So, why is Jess interested in locating his brother, Tim? And why is Dick Carter set on having Jess killed? Well, I told you already a little bit about Dick Carter. And what happens is he pays $3,000, which is a huge amount of money in those days, to some bounty hunters to hunt Jess down and either bring him back, either dead or alive. And then later, when that doesn't work out, Dick Carter actually goes ahead and hires, guess who? Jess's own half-brother, Tim Sloan, to kill Jess. And he offers to pay him $10,000. So those are the two main things going on in this book, and how Jess deals with all of this is really what makes the story. So the main action then is Jess's war with Dick Carter, and it really is a war. Dick Carter's got a huge number of gunmen working for him. He's not just a rancher, but he's a dirty rancher, a rancher that forces others to bend to his will. And to get away with that, he needs to have pretty tough, I guess we could say, evil gunmen working for him. And Jess decides to basically stop. He refuses to run from this guy, Dick Carter, and he comes back to Black Creek, Kansas, and finds that Dick Carter has taken over the town, and that people who were Jess's friends are being punished by Dick Carter, and Jess hates this, and so he decides to go after Dick Carter and Dick Carter's men, and step by step, with the help of his friends in town, basically take out all of Dick Carter's men, kill all of them, and the body count really runs up. In previous video, I was going to keep track of the body count and let you know how many people died in each story, but I found that it was just too many to keep up with. So I've decided to cut that from these videos, and instead I'll tell you a little bit about the next book that's coming after. But let's just say that Jess does kill a lot of people. In this book, yeah, it's mainly the people that work with Dick Carter, but not only that. Jess ends up killing his own brother, Tim Sloan. They have a gunfight, and we meet Tim. Tim is an arrogant asshole that basically does whatever he wants, kills people whenever he wants, and so in the story, we feel happy when we feel sorry for Jess for having to kill his own brother, but it had to be done. And the other thing that the other people that Jess kill throughout the story and throughout the entire series from time to time are either people in bars who kind of pick fights with him. These are usually bad people, but also we come across the occasional gunslinger. These are professional guys who are not necessarily bad. In fact, these guys would never shoot you in the back, would never ambush you, but rather they're professional gunslingers, and they're eager to make a name for themselves. And Jess already has a reputation of being the fastest guy in the West. And so every now and then, Jess will meet one of them and try to talk them out of it, but usually ends up killing them as well. So, what surprised me in this book? Yeah, there were some really interesting things. The first one was Jess's attitude regarding the tracking down of his brother Tim, and then later his father. Jess really quickly has developed a hatred for evil people. People who have no regard for others, and who spend their life killing others for no good reason other than they're evil and they're selfish. So Jess quickly realizes that perhaps his natural brother and father are those kind of people, and decides to go out of his way to track them down. He wants to talk with them and give them the benefit of the doubt, find out what they say. Another surprising thing is the opposite. The attitude of the brother and the father, especially in this book, the brother, towards Jess. The fact that Tim has a brother that he didn't know about is a surprise to him. But when he's offered $10,000 to go to Black Creek or wherever, find Jess and kill him, he thinks it's a great idea and doesn't hesitate even 1 second. He's looking forward to earning that money, and he doesn't care. That's kind of a shocking, surprising thing about story number 2 here. Another surprising thing is before Jess takes out Dick Carter and kills him and all of his men, Dick Carter got another local rancher who owes him a favor, a guy named Hardin, to promise him that if Dick Carter was killed, that Hardin would follow up for him and arrange things with Tim Sloan. Hardin hates doing this, but he says a promise is a promise. And then another interesting and surprising thing that comes up in the story is out on the trail, we meet Carl and Murray. Carl and Murray are two guys that have come west from New York. The reason is they want to start a business together. They want to open a bar in New York City that's going to be the best bar in the entire city that caters to rich people. And they have it all planned out, but they don't have enough money. And so they've heard that bounty hunters can make a lot of money. And so they come out west to capture a few bad criminals, turn them in for the bounty, and then use that, go back home with that money to start up their own bar. Trouble is, they don't know a thing about bounty hunting. And not only that, they just do not get along with each other. They're constantly arguing. And this is part of the comic relief that comes into play here. But the surprising thing is Jess's kindness. And we see it again and again and again, book after book after book. Jess goes out of his way to help them. Jess goes out of his way to help them financially. And Jess even decides to partner up with them and invest in them and help them start their business as a partner. And this happens quite often too in the Jess Williams series, where Jess starts earning so much money from the bounties that he's taking that he's got more than he knows what to do with it. And so he either invests it in various business ventures with people that he meets along the way, or he literally gives it away to needy people. Okay, so repeats. Yeah, I like this category, and in any series, as I mentioned before, there are going to be a lot of repeats, but it's the repeats that make us like the series. It's the main characters, the friends, the things that Jess does all the time. It makes us feel familiar with who Jess is and what his situation is. So let me share with you some of the repeats that we see here for the first time, which is often the case, and then come up again and again and again from time to time in the entire series. One is Jess on the trail. So things that come up again and again on the trail: Jess and his horses, Gray and Sharps, what Jess eats. He loves to cook, actually. He often cooks pan bread and salt pork. Apparently that's what people ate on the trail in those days. Jess comes up with an ingenious way to protect himself at night when he's sleeping. He ties a number of cans together, puts stones or pebbles in the cans, and connects them all with string, and strings out the cans in bushes around his campsite, so that if anyone does try to sneak up on him, they're going to trip the string and trip the cans and make a huge amount of noise, which will warn Jess in time that his life is being threatened. Okay, well, also the Big 50 Buffalo rifle. Jess, for the first time, sees and then buys this long-range rifle. It's called a Sharps rifle, and this comes into great use time after time after time in these series. Another one is different people in the story. Jim and Sarah Smith, who are like family to Jess. Tony, who runs the livery. Andy and his daughter Luann, who run the saloon. All of these are people that are close to Jess and who give him all of the support that he needs, especially after his family has been killed. Another one that comes up here for the first time and who we will meet in many future stories is Frank Reedy. In this story, Frank Reedy is a bounty hunter who has been hired by Dick Carter to track down and kill Jess. But Frank Reedy realizes that it's just not the right thing to do, that Jess is entirely innocent. Jess didn't do anything, that Jess killing Dick Carter's son Red was entirely justified. And so Frank Reedy decides not to take the $3,000, and later in this story and later in the entire series, Frank Reedy and Jess become good friends. And in fact, Frank Reedy becomes a U.S. Marshal and helps Jess from time to time, and Jess helps him out from time to time. The other big thing, perhaps the main thing, is the gun. Jess's gun and holster. It's part of the time slip story that you'll learn about when you read book 1 and this book 2, and then also in book 3. It's kind of a mysterious story. Reading reviews, people are saying, of course, there's no drama in any of this. Jess is unbeatable. We know how everything's going to come out. Well, that's not quite true. In future stories, Jess is wounded quite a few times, sometimes very seriously wounded, and almost dies. He doesn't die, but he almost dies. But Jess has a big advantage with his gun and holster. And but that's all, to me, that's part of what makes the series so interesting, is that, Jess is special. The gun is special. The time slip story tells us why he gets the gun, why he is able to do the things he does. So I would really, really recommend, even for just this, to read about the story and see what happens with this, the time slip and the mystery of this really unique, unusual, beautiful gun that just falls into Jess's hands from out of nowhere. And knowing how that happened and why has made me appreciate the story, yeah, even more, even more. Okay, so let me read. My voice is starting to go again, sorry. Let me share with you a few of my favorite lines, favorite quotations from the story. I'll try to choose a few from the middle and the beginning and the end. I was going to read to you something about the guns and the time slip, but I think I'll just let you go ahead and read that on your own. But it really is fascinating. Okay, so Jess comes back to town, and after being away for quite a few months and after gunning down the three men that killed his family, and after getting into gunfights with some really famous killers or gunfighters, gunslingers, and he defeats all of them easily. And so he's developing a reputation. And so Jim and Sarah Smith are kind of worried about him and hope that this beautiful young kid, this pure boy, this poor kid who's lost his parents, that it's not too late for him, that he can maybe come back to Black Creek and lead a normal life. And so Jess is eating with them, and they start talking to him, and they say, Jess, we heard you went into we heard you went into the bounty hunting business. Is that true? Yes, Jess says. A man has to make a living somehow, and it seems to be what I'm good at. And I found out that it pays pretty well too. Besides that, I promised myself that I would only hunt the worst of the lot. I will only hunt down men who have murdered and raped innocent people, who have done nothing to deserve it. I won't stand for that. So yeah, this came up in the first book, of course, and this is kind of Jess's guiding philosophy, isn't it? That he's going to hunt down the worst of the worst, and basically not feel any hesitation at all to go after these kind of people. Okay. And much later in the story, a kind of a continuation of that conversation with Jim and Sarah. So Jess is trying to explain to her why he feels little remorse, no remorse at all in killing these bad guys. It's not something normal people can do. And Jess seems to be doing it day after day after day. It's his whole life now is killing guys. And so it's hard for them to understand. And so they're trying to get him to explain himself. Jess says, what if Carter decided to tell those men to come here and murder Jim and then rape torture and kill you just for helping me. Picture that in your mind for a minute, Sarah. And don't tell me that it can't happen, because that is exactly what happened to my ma and little Samantha. And there was absolutely no reason for it. Think about the terror and the horror and the helplessness you would feel until they finally put a bullet in your head. Try to imagine the terror and horror my mom and little Samantha went through. That's how you have to look at it. That's how I look at it. And when I do, I can justify my actions. That's what I'm trying to prevent. So this is, Jess's guiding philosophy. And I think it's easy to buy into. He's not a bad guy at all. He doesn't do the work of the devil, which is a line that often comes up. What he's doing actually is good, and the people that die deserve to die. And Jess is a hero. He's protecting society. He's protecting innocent people. Okay. Okay. Next, let me share with you a part of the story where Jess has his two horses. And it reads, "The two horses that Hardin had provided were two of the most magnificent long horses that Handley had ever laid eyes on." These two horses are later going to be given to Jess as a way of making amends for what he's been put through. They were fast and they had endurance to spare. Okay. Okay, and let me read just a few more. Okay. Okay, next. Okay, next, this is a conversation between Jess and his brother Tim. Talking about Tim's friend Taggart, who was one of the three people that murdered Jess's family. And it's for this reason that Jess is going after his brother. Tim says, "Taggart was pretty fast with a pistol. Who took him down?" Jess says, "That would be me." "Taggart was a good friend of mine. We worked together on a few card games and shared some whores. I didn't know he was involved in your family's demise, but why the hell should that matter to me anyway? I ain't got a mother, just a father." Jess says, you have a mother who gave birth to you. She's buried out at the ranch right beside my pa and my little sister Samantha. She would have raised you and taken care of you if you hadn't been taken away from her by your father. Now you tell me that one of the men who did it was a good friend of yours?" Tim says, "Hey, I don't give two shits about your mama or your little sister. I'm only here for one reason. I'm getting paid $10,000 to put a slug in your chest. What do you think about that?" I don't know, but I think it's pretty powerful stuff here. And it's kind of a surprising conversation between two brothers, isn't it? Okay. Um, okay, this is from the epilogue of the story. Jess has pretty much saved the town of Black Creek, Kansas, and he's now riding out of town. And as he does so, someone speaks to him. As he got to the end of the street, there was an old lady sitting on her porch in a rocking chair. She stood up as he passed her place. It was the old lady who had spoken to him back in Carter's hardware store the day he chased all the customers out and over to Jim's store. "You take good care of yourself, young Mr. Williams. Some of the people in town won't say it, but most of them are grateful for what you have did. And for me, you keep doing it. There are a lot of people out there who need someone like you, even though they may not know it." He smiled at her and removed his hat in respect. "Why, ma'am, I think that's probably the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me," replied Jess, stopping momentarily. "Thank you, and I promise you that I will continue doing what seems to have turned out to be my life's work. You take care of yourself, ma'am," he said, and he began again on the road leaving town. Okay, so the next book, the next book is called what is it called? Excuse me a second. I've momentarily forgotten what it's called. But in it, basically, Jess is out to find his father. It's called Sins of the Father, and it follows a very similar path, I think, to number 2, A Brother's Keeper, in that Jess kind of knows from the beginning what he's going to find: a father who's a really evil guy, and he's going to hunt him down, confront him, and probably get into a gun battle with him. In number 3, lots and lots of other interesting people show up, and Jess does what he's good at in killing the bad guys. So, yeah, thank you for joining me today. Sorry about my throat. I speak for 10, 20 minutes, and I need a drink. So, thanks a lot. See you next time. Take care.